Welcome to Curious Kids Every Day. I'm Josh. How are you doing today? It's so good to hear from you. Now, normally on Curious Kids Every Day, we talk about real things. But today, I just want to imagine something. Talk about time machines. What if time machines were real? What if we could actually travel through time? What if you could go into the past or the future? What would happen? Have you ever thought about going back into the past before you were born and seeing what life was like back then? What about going into the future and seeing what's going to happen later? Is any of it possible? Today, let's imagine that we have a time machine and let's think about what exactly that would mean. Okay, well, let's start with a big question. Can we travel through time? Well, technically, we already are. Right now, this very second, you and I are moving through time together, 1 second at a time. But what people usually mean when they ask about time travel is jumping forward or backward, like zooming to the future or rewinding to the past. Scientists have actually thought a lot about this. In physics, time is kind of like another dimension, just like up and down, left and right, forward and backward. And if time is a dimension, maybe we could move around in it, the same way we move through space. But here's where things get complicated, because moving through time leads to all kinds of paradoxes. A paradox is something that doesn't make sense, because it sort of breaks the rules as we understand them. Imagine this. You step into a time machine, travel years into the past, and meet your younger self. Well, here's the problem. If that had happened, wouldn't your younger self already remember it? But if your younger self doesn't remember meeting you, then how are you meeting yourself now? That's called the grandfather paradox. Usually it's explained with an even trickier example. What if you went back in time and accidentally stopped your grandparents from meeting? Well, if your grandparents didn't meet, then they wouldn't have your parents. And if your parents didn't meet, then they wouldn't have you. And if they didn't have you, who went into the past and stopped them from meeting? Another paradox comes from traveling into the future. Let's say you go forward 50 years and see what your life looks like. When you come back to the present, now you know what happens. Does that mean you're stuck on the exact path you saw? Or does knowing the future give you the power to change it? Or is the future that you saw because you saw it and now you're gonna change it to the future that you saw? Is going into the future immediately changing what was going to happen in the future? See, this question is called the Predestination Paradox. It makes us wonder if the future is locked in or if we have the ability to make choices that change it. And that reminds me of something called the butterfly effect. This idea says that even the tiniest action can have enormous consequences later on. It's named after the thought that a butterfly flapping its wings in one part of the world could eventually cause a hurricane. That sounds pretty crazy, doesn't it? But here's the thinking. A butterfly flapping its wings adds just a little puff of air into the atmosphere. That puff of air mixes with other puffs, which changes how air flows around it. Over time, those tiny shifts can interact with other changes, slightly changing the path of clouds, winds, or storms. And then weeks later, the weather pattern could be completely different than it would have been if the butterfly hadn't flapped its wings. The point is, little changes matter. If you traveled back in time and stepped on a single flower, it might change what bees pollinate, what fruits grow, and maybe even how history unfolds. That's why time travel would be so tricky, because even if you went into the past and tried not to change things, just you being there would change things. For example, you might bump into someone which causes them to be late to a class. Them being late to a class could affect what happens in that class, which could affect what kids in the class learn that day. That change in learning could affect those kids for the rest of their lives. See how small changes can create big ones? But here's the amazing thing. We don't even need a time machine to see the butterfly effect in real life. Think about your everyday choices. If you say one kind word to your sibling today, it could make them smile, which would make them feel good, which might lead them to be kind to someone else, which could cause that person to be kind to someone else too. Your one small action could ripple outward, almost like a rock dropping into water and creating a ripple effect. Your one small action ripples outward, changing someone's whole day, or even their whole life. We might not have machines that can zoom us backward or forward through time, but we do have the power to shape the future by the little choices we make right now. Every choice you make is kind of like stepping into a time machine. The things you do today affect what tomorrow looks like. And just like a time traveler, you get to decide what kind of future you want to help create. I have a really good example of this, but it means I have to make a little bit of a confession. See, I like staying up late and playing video games. I know, I'm a grown-up, I shouldn't do these things, but I'm a very busy guy. I have a lot of things going on, and sometimes if I want to play video games, the only time to do it is late at night. But I know that when I do that, I always wake up feeling like I didn't get enough sleep the night before, and that affects my entire next day. I've learned that if I can get to bed early, I always feel much more rested. It might not be as much fun now for me to get in bed early because I want to play video games, but I know that tomorrow Josh will be really grateful that today Josh decided to go to sleep early. So I always try to get in bed early as a gift to my future self. It's a small way that I can create a better future for myself. Anyways, enough about that. Do you want to hear about how you can actually slow down time? Some theories say traveling into the future might be possible if you went close to the speed of light, because time moves slower for you than it does for the rest of the world. This idea comes from Einstein's theory of relativity. Relativity tells us that time isn't the same for everyone. It depends on how fast you're moving and how close you are to strong gravity. When you move really, really fast, close to the speed of light, which is about 186,000 miles per second, time for you slows down compared to people who aren't moving that fast. To you, everything would feel normal. Your clock would tick, your heart would beat, your thoughts would be at the same pace. But if someone back on Earth was watching, they would see your clock ticking much more slowly than theirs. This effect is called time dilation. Here's an example. Imagine you get on a super fast spaceship that travels near the speed of light for what feels like 1 year to you. When you get back to Earth, you might discover that 10 years or 100 years have passed here. You only aged a little, but everyone else on Earth aged much more. That means you effectively traveled into the future. Scientists have actually tested it. It's usually just fractions of a second, but it proves that the idea works. The same thing happens with astronauts on the International Space Station. They orbit Earth at about 17,000 miles per hour. Wow. And that means that time moves just a little slower for them than for people on the ground. After 6 months in space, an astronaut ends up younger than they would have been on Earth by a fraction of a second, literally less than 1 second. But still, it's something. It shows that time is a lot more complicated than we understand. It's another amazing mystery of our universe. Maybe one day we'll have a better understanding of this crazy dimension we call time. Maybe one day you might discover more about how time can be altered or controlled. But just remember, you're already a time traveler. You're moving forward into the future 1 second at a time. And every small action you take today can make a big difference in the days ahead. Okay, let's have a quick quiz. What's the name of the paradox where meeting your past self creates problems? Remember, if you went into the past and met your grandparents, what is the name of that paradox? Yep, it's the grandfather paradox. The paradox states that it doesn't make sense that you could go in the past and meet your grandparents because you might do something that would cause them to not have your parents, and if they didn't have your parents, then your parents couldn't have you. And then how did you go into the past to stop the grandparents from meeting? It's kind of trippy. All right, here's another question. What's the name of the effect that says small actions can lead to big changes over time? Do you remember it was an insect and we were talking about the gust of wind from their wings? That is the butterfly effect. Okay, and who ages just a little bit slower because they're moving so fast? Yep, astronauts, the ones in the International Space Station. Let's play true or false. True or false? The butterfly effect is about butterflies flapping so hard that they can blow people away. False. It's about small actions creating big changes. True or false? If you traveled to the future, you might face the Predestination Paradox. That is true, because if you go into the future, now you know what happens. So when you come back to the past, are you locked into that future, or could you change it now that you know what happens? True or false? Time travel into the past is something scientists already know how to do. That is false. We don't know if it's possible. One more. True or false? Astronauts in space can time travel forward just a tiny bit. That is true. Would you rather travel 100 years into the future to see all the new inventions, or 100 years into the past to see how people lived back then? I'm not sure how much I would enjoy seeing 100 years into the future. It feels like a big responsibility. You have to come back and try to remember all the different inventions to tell people about. I think that I would rather go back into the past to a simpler time and just kind of exist without all these screens that we watch all the time. I think that would be really nice. All right, let's play What Am I? What am I? I flap my wings. I'm tiny, but I can cause big change. And I'm an insect. What am I? It's a butterfly. Here's another one. I orbit the Earth. People live and work on me. And time moves just a tiny tiny bit slower for me. It's the International Space Station. Here's one more. What am I? I keep track of something important. You probably have me hanging on a wall or on your wrist. Without me, you wouldn't know when to be places. What am I? It's a clock. Okay, let's pretend we're stepping into a time machine right now. I'll give you two choices and you pick which one you'd rather visit. Are you ready? Okay, we're in our time machine. Where would you rather go? Back to when dinosaurs walked the Earth? Or forward to when humans live on Mars? What about this one? Would you visit your great-great-grandparents or meet your great-great-grandchildren? Okay, and here's one more. Would you rather see your own birthday party from when you turned 1 or jump forward to your 100th birthday party? You know, the fun of imagining time machines is that it helps us think about how powerful our everyday choices are. Even the little things we do today, like sharing, helping, or being kind, can shape your home, your family, and even the world into a better future. Pretty cool, huh? What kind of question do you think we'll ask tomorrow on Curious Kids Every Day? I can't wait to find out. So until then, keep asking questions and stay curious, kids. And for all the grown-ups listening, thank you so much for telling other parents about this show. Please visit CuriousKidsEveryday.com for a free printable with activity ideas that don't involve screens. Those are the best kinds of adventures to have. That's CuriousKidsEveryday.com. See you tomorrow in the future.